Okay, right. I'm going to start, even though some people are still coming, they'll be fine. These are the last two, here they come. That's beautiful. Okay, right. So, short recap. Test tonight will be on everything we've done until Friday, up into and including Friday, which I have some bad news that Friday's lecture was not recorded correctly. You saw that I was doing stuff here, but when I stopped, it was gone. So I'm really sorry about that, but we'll live with it. Tonight we have a test. Tomorrow there will be a tutorial, but I will make an announcement about that because we can't all come. And, well, I'll send an announcement on Sunlearn. And what else do I need to tell you? And I've updated the networking. Some people complained that it didn't work in Narga, and I've updated it, but I haven't tested it there myself yet. So I'll do that today. And if it doesn't work in Narga, if the networking doesn't work, then I shall change the requirements that we don't need to have multiplayer. But if it does work, you will need multiplayer. I'm guessing you've already done most of that work. Don't laugh like that. Okay. Right. We have to move on, even though I know it's a test and the test is always the end of the world. We have to think about the afterlife. What shall we be doing after the test? So this is our schedule for the rest of the course. Today we're going to talk about random numbers and array IO. I've never heard of that stuff. And IFS, don't know, statistics, nothing good, heard nothing good about that. On Thursday we'll be marking your submissions. On Friday we talk about modular programming. And then we start with the best stuff ever invented, recursion. And we'll be talking about that until almost the end of the course. Okay. So this week more library stuff. Next week recursion. I must admit that I didn't read up for today, but I know you all have. But you'll just allow me to catch up and see what this is really all about. On the recording you won't be able to see this, but let's see page 224. 224. Oh, by the way, this is the book. I don't know which way is better. I'll do it like this. This is the book. This is my hand. This is the book. It's got a bluish color. If you still haven't picked up a copy, it's supposed to be in all the bookshops. But I'll admit, I haven't gone down there to physically check. But I know our secretary ordered some, and she said that there was... Skin is drying out. Okay. Must be the chalk. Our secretary said that there are about 70 plus copies in at least one of the bookshops, so I'm sure that they're around. Okay, page 224. What is this array stuff all about? Array IO random numbers. 224. Okay, different book. 226, okay. It says libraries and client. Oh, bad resolution. Okay, never mind. Good thing I'm not recording this. It's very grainy. Libraries and clients. Oh, that's a lot of reading work. How many pages do I have to read? 6. Oh, never do it. Okay. Okay, libraries and clients. We've done this stuff in class. I've talked about it a lot. So it should be pretty easy. Code reuse sounds good. Modular programming sounds good. That's on the schedule for Friday. What else? Classes. Don't know about that. But I'm going to skip reading this stuff because I want to get to the good stuff. Using static methods in other programs. Old hat. We've been doing this for weeks now. So let's see. There is something called Gaussian. It's got a main at the end. That looks good. And it is using math.exp. So somewhere, we don't know where, there's a math.java. Can you see this? Somewhere, this little program called Gaussian.java is using math.java. We don't have the source code. Actually, we can find the source code if we want, but we don't want to. It's part of the Java system always. And it's also using SAT, I think. Where is it using SAT? Oh no, I've got it the wrong way around. This also has a main function. And it's using Gaussian. So why does Gaussian have its own main function? Why is it not white? Well, remember I said that when you write software, you want to unit test it. You want to test it yourself to see that it's correct. If it's part of big software, someone else will also be testing it, but you are responsible for writing your own unit tests. So this little piece of code is code to convince the user that Gaussian works. It's a lot of little tests, even though it's not as good as mine, because I think mine said assert, which would fail, and gives no indication of what's supposed to be there. But at least it has some code to test itself out. Fine. So Gaussian is the library, math is the library we know already, and the SAT is supposed to be the main program. Cool, got that. Public keyword, compile when necessary. I'm beginning to think that what I'm looking for is not in here at all. Random numbers. Ah, this is what I want. I wonder if these page numbers are wrong. I'll double check. But this is a section of the book that talks about random numbers, and they give a little class. So they give the class API, basically the contract that tells us what will this library do. And those are the routines we can call, set, seed, uniform, all that stuff. This is not part of the Java library. This is not part of Java. This is one of those libraries that these authors, Sedgwick and Wayne, can't see that I'm pointing to them, Sedgwick and Wayne, wrote to distribute with this textbook. It's not a bad idea. It makes some of the Java libraries can be quite complex, and it's supposed to make life a little easier. But we haven't really touched them at all. I mean, we're using standard draw. I'll give you a copy of standard draw to use for the project. And that Mozart thing I had used standard audio, STD audio. But sometimes in this course, we've used their standard input and output from the very start. This year, we've avoided it basically all the time. So this is a little library for standard for random numbers. But I really want to skip that, because what I want to see is the other library for standard array, IO. So this just makes it easier to read a whole array from the input. We often want to do that. Many of the programs we write, we want to read 1,000 numbers and put them inside an array. And sometimes we've been doing that by hand, so to speak. But it's nice to have a little library that can do it for us, where I can say, please read me from the standard input a whole array at a time. However, I'm not really interested in using their library. So what we are going to do in class today is to define our own library. We are going to write our own version of the standard array IO. Let's just see what else they say about it. Array IO, they don't say much. More tiny TD. So this is a two-dimensional array, and that they're going to read with their read double 2D array. Fine, that's fine. Then they use the program like that. So they're just printing it. Okay, so let's do that ourselves. This must be very boring on the recording, but never mind. Okay. This is the file we talked about on Friday. I still have to put this up. I haven't yet. Okay, but let's get here. I want to say new Java project. I want to call it array IO. I can call it anything I want. It doesn't have to be, just ignore that. That's a stupid plugin that's broken. Okay. I can call it anything I want. I don't have to call it array IO. There doesn't need to be a file called array IO at all, but I usually try to keep the name of the program and the name of the project the same, just so I don't get too confused. Okay, so I'm in source. I'm going to say make a new class. Okay, what am I going to call my my library? Well, I'll probably call it array.io because that sounds sensible. But I don't want to start with the library. I want to start with the client. I want to think about how am I going to use this library? What am I going to need to put inside the library? So I'm going to write a little client that uses the library for stuff, and I'll work my way backwards to the library. And that's often how we do things. This is a special name. It's called TDD, Test-Driven Development, where you first write the tests and the usage, and then you engineer the library to supply that need. So I'm going to write a little client that's going to use my library, and I'm going to call my client array user. Oh, I should have added a main. I always forget, but never mind. Main control space. It's fine. It did work. It's just a little slow. Okay, there we go. Okay. And how's this fancy schmancy library going to work? Well, I'm going to say I want an int array, which I'll call marks. And then I want to say something like array.io.read int array. Okay, so now Java's complaining because array.io does not exist. I haven't even started the library, but I'm going to ignore that for now. I'm going to work with it as if it were there. I'm going to say int total equals 0 for int I equals 0, I less than size of marks, I plus plus. Total plus equals marks I, and sys out control space average total divided by marks dot length. Okay. Any issues? Everybody happy? I'm not happy. Because average is probably going to be a real number. And here I'm dividing an int by another integer. So this is going to do integer division. It's probably not exactly what I want. So I'm first going to multiply that by 1.0. So now it's int times double, which will be a double, divided by an int, which will be a double as well. So I'll get a nice real number. Okay, fine. So it seems as if my program is beautifully complete, except Java or Eclipse is complaining about array.io. And if I ask Eclipse what's wrong, if I put my cursor on here and I hover, it says array.io cannot be resolved, so it cannot find it. It cannot resolve to some class it knows. And then it says there are 16 possible fixes that it's prepared to do for me. So the first one is to create a class called array.io, which is pretty much what I want. This I don't understand. A const don't know. No, none of this stuff looks real. Okay, fake news. Create class. That's what I want. Zoom out. Name array. Yeah, well, finish. Okay, great. So it created the class for me. One small problem done. Next. Oh, still a mistake. It doesn't know a function called readIntArray inside that class. So I hover. It says the method readIntArray is undefined. And the quick fix is to create a method. Now, I don't want to turn all of you into robots who don't write any code, but just click, 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 click through Eclipse to write entire programs. But if you can manage that, that's fine. I don't mind that. And the truth is that if you write a lot of code, This makes life a lot easier. You don't have to click a lot of buttons, type a lot of words. Eclipse will help you in this way. So it's not bad doing this, but yeah, well, okay, what am I going to do? I want to read the array from the input. Okay, let's see. How do I do that? Who's going to be my victim? Craig, who sits in front of you? Just touch them. They'll say their name. Katerina. No. Okay, Katerina. Reading from the input. How to? Okay, beautiful. That is exactly what I want to hear. Scanner. I forget how we make a scanner. Scanner system dot in. In. Okay, fine. Now it's complaining about scanner. How do you fix that? Oh, import scanner. Okay, click. Fine. Okay. I do, and I have. Okay, Katerina, what next? I've got a scanner. Does scanner have a routine for reading an array? Scanner dot read. Oh. Next int, next line, string, I don't know what that stuff is, boolean, byte. Can't see array at all. So we'll have to do it by hand. What do you suggest, Katerina? Okay, you were doing so well. It's an int array. If I use scanner.nextInt, I'll read one int. You agree? But I want to read many ints. So I'm going to have some kind of loop. And inside, I'm going to read the next int. Something equals scanner.nextInt. Okay, Katerina, given it all away, you can just fill in the details. I'll just type, you speak. A for or loop. Okay, for loop. If you think that's best, okay. For. Next. I'm not deaf. I don't know sign language. Done. Save and run. Okay. That is very good. Just missing one or two small details. Firstly, something. What's something? Oh, wonderful, great, right? Array.length, got it. Array.length. Whoops, my mistake. Fingers in the wrong place. Last time I was arrested for that. Okay, yes. Who said array something? Kevin, Callum, Keegan, Christo, what's your names? Did you say that? Callum, did you say it? Yes, you did. What array are you talking about? What? IO. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I was like, we're going further. You're getting colder, Callum. Colder. Well, it's not a mistake. It worked. Oh. Open brace doesn't work. What does it say? Syntax error. It's very confused. Okay. So no, I don't think. I first have to have an array, a real array, an int array, if I want to determine its length. Katerina, okay. Where is that array? I don't see it. I think I have to create it. So I'm going to say int array result. And then I'm going to say, well, this is smaller than result at length. Yeah, that's beautiful. Result I equals, okay, everything is beautiful except for the local variable result may not have been initialized. Okay, fine. I can do that. No problem. I'll initialize it. New int.
So can you go click initialize? I want to see what it
I can in a second. I just want to finish. I'll finish in a sec. Katerina, how big should this array be? How many numbers on the command line, on the input? It seems we're never going to be able to know. How will we find out? Luckily, Java has a function called ESP predict number of. And it just ESP and it, no, it doesn't. Okay, right. Okay. So this is a big problem. So we have two options. One is called I don't know what it's called. One is to say that, as they did in the book, if you read, you've read it, you know the answer. It's not a big mystery, but you can specify that if the user wants to put an array in the input, the very first number must be the size. So if I want to enter 10 marks, my very first number must be 10, and then I can start the marks. So I could have the size of the array in the input and say, the next int is the size. So then I create an array of that size. And I could say this, or I could say, well, it's smaller than the size. And the only thing left is I must send back this result. What does it say about scanner? Resource leak. Scanner's never closed. I know. Let's just think how I'm going to fix it. Well, what is it? What are my options? Add suppress warnings. So this will add a little text to my Java that says, don't complain about the scanner not being closed. Oh no. I'll just close it. Close. Oh, guess that? Fine, now it's closed. Okay. What do you what? What? Save memory? No, it's because, yeah, it's partly because of memory, but also just because of a general principle that if you open a resource, if you create a resource, you must always destroy it. You must always close it. So it's not only for memory, it's also for other stuff, advanced stuff you'll get to third year. I'm sorry, Justin, what did you ask? Initialize.
Yeah, because I gave you the option to initialize the variable. Just I want to see what it does, because it can do everything else by itself.
Let's see. I don't see that, so let's see what it says. Result is not initialized. Initialize variable. Ah.
Okay.
It guessed that I want null. Okay. Not going to work for me. Okay. Okie dokie. Katerina, you happy? So we did exactly what you said. We started with a scanner. We can only read integers with next int, but we can do that in the for loop and read all of them. We needed somewhere to store that, and I was going to send back an array in any case, so I just created an array for that. And then we had the problem of finding out how big to make the array, but we decided on a convention. If you're using this library and you're going to read an array, the very first entry must be the number of elements in that array, which is not unreasonable. Okie dokie. Fine. Let's see if this works. Zoom out. Ooh, but now I need a standard input. Very tricky. There are some things that Eclipse simply cannot do very well. And one is to handle standard input and output. It doesn't work very well. So what would be fantastic is if I could combine the power of Eclipse with my old skills at working on the command line. So I'm now going to switch back to the command line and run this program from the command line. This is Eclipse. These are my projects, 4 of them. They must be stored somewhere. And Eclipse actually does this quite straightforwardly. It stores it in a special directory called the workspace directory. And we can find that. We don't have to look hard. It's inside documents. And I've got all my documents here, and then inside here there's workspace. Okay. So I'm inside the workspace directory where Eclipse stores all its projects. If I make a list of all the projects that are, or files that are here, or folders, I'll see my 4 projects. Array.io, greetme, greeter, static methods. And if I go inside Array.io, there are only 2 directories. One is called source, which is exactly that one. And everything that's in there is inside that source folder on the disk, on my computer. And then there's bin, which Eclipse doesn't show me in this view. I can actually see it, but I don't want to. And inside bin, that's where it puts all the compiled files. So as soon as I've written something and saved it, Eclipse compiles it and puts it inside the bin directory. So if I go inside bin, I will see that my 2 class files, my library and my user file, the client, they've already been compiled. Look, watch this. Watch. Remove the class files. They're gone. Save. They're still gone. Okay. Eclipse didn't pick that up because I didn't really make a change to the file. I need to change something, so let's say blah. Save. Oh. Blah. Okay, now they're back. That didn't go as smoothly as I wanted. Sometimes Eclipse is a little smarter. Okay. Rightio. So these are just Java class files. I've worked with them a million times. Usually I'd say Java C array user.java to compile it, but in this case I don't have to, and the source file isn't here in any case. And when I've done that, I'll say Java array user. And now it's running my little averaging of the marks program. I'm going to enter 5 marks. And you have to tell me the average. So I'm going to enter 5 marks. 80, 70, 60, 50. 40. No. 60. Okay, if I press enter, that'll be the 5th mark. That'll be the whole array that Eclipse has read into result and pass back to my average client, and the average client will compute the average and actually display it. So I don't want to press enter now, but what should it display? I don't know. 50, 60, what do you want? Are you sure-ish? 80 and 50 cancel out. 70 and 60, their average is 65.
So 60 and 65.
Does it work like that? Seems a little.
50 every time, so 5 times 50 is 250, and then an extra 20 for the 260 is extra
320, you say? Oh, well, clearly we don't know. Let's find out. That's why we have. What do you?
320
Uh-oh. 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 So when we calculate the average, we can't just take the numbers 2 at a time and just say, oh, well, 80 and 70, their average is 675. Then there comes a 60, average of 75, and 60 is about, I don't know, 67.5. Then comes a 50, average of 50, and 67.5 is about, I don't know, 61.25, and so on. You can't just do that, Justin. So, but to be honest, I don't know either. In fact, when you started summing them, sums to 320, and 320 divided by 5 is 64. We should have known that. Oakley dokley. Right, seems as if our program is working. We're very happy. What else do we want?
You want to read it from another folder?
Well, I can put this in a file. I'll just copy all this. I'll make a little file called my little file. Okay. 5 numbers, 80, 70, 60, 50, 60. And let's do it, no, let's do it once. It's fine. Now I'm going to use this pipe that you've seen at least once. I'm going to clear the screen. And it's going to print 64.0. This is the part that is difficult in Eclipse. This is not easy to do in Eclipse. Piping files to one another. It's possible, but it's not easy. Right. I'm just a little worried about this scanner closing business. So I'm going to change my program up here so that it does this twice. For int k equals 0, k less than 2, k plus plus. Oh, by the way, one important thing. Let's say that you have a head injury and you can't keep your neck up. You can't see to properly indent. Always. Then you can ask Eclipse to indent for you by selecting all of the text and pressing Shift Control F. And it'll do all your indentation. Just saying. Okay. So this is the same as the previous program, except there's a for loop around everything that just repeats it twice. Let's see what happens. Save. So it's compiled. I've got to modify my little file. I'm just going to make a copy. And I'm going to put all of that in one line because scanner won't mind. Then I'm going to put another line, 90, 80, 70, 60, 70. Before we run this, just let's turn to our local average expert, Justin. But 74, wow. Are we sure? Oh, okay. I think it is 74. Right here. So now I'm going to send my little file to array user, which does the averaging twice. Should print two averages, 64.0 and 0.0. Okay. Oh no! I knew this was too good to be true. In line 9 of array io.java, oh, wrong file. Oh, well, I thought, well, what? Okay. When it reads the next int, I did the first one fine, but when it had to read the size for the second one, it was a little confused. Am I still wearing my mics? Right. And the reason is that because we close the scanner, we somehow don't have access. We can't open it again. So we should really only open the scanner once, and then right at the end, close it. So we're going to need to modify our program a little bit. And I am just going to do this the easiest possible way. That is to move scanner out here. Oh, to move scanner out here and to say it is private and static. And I don't want to close it. So I made scanner into a global variable. It has an initial value. It's a new scanner from the standard input. And I use it throughout this class library. It's shared by everybody. And I never close it. So let's just see if that works a little better. Okay, good. And you were even right. Yes. Okay. Everybody happy?
Why is I complaining about the not closing it anymore?
Who knows? Who knows how these things work? It's a mysterious universe.
Can't you make stuff if you're out?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Why is it not complaining about closing it? Well, I'm pretty sure it's because when we used scanner before, we used it inside a scope. And when the scope closed, that variable would disappear. And Eclipse, not Java, but Eclipse can pick up. If this variable disappears, the scanner will not be accessible any longer, but it's never been closed. So complain about it not being closed. But now that it's a global variable, there is no such thing as a live scope in the sense that this scope will only go away when the program finishes. And at that point, we don't care anymore because there's nothing after the program stops. So the scope of these variables, their lifetime, as it's called, their scope is this class. They can only be seen inside this class because it's private. But their lifetime is the lifetime of the whole class, which is the run of the program, if you want a technical definition. No, yes. Hoekom hanteer die scanner die twee lyne as verskillende? Okay, right. Okay, right. Okay, how do you like these bananas? Wat is jou vraag nou? Daar is geen onderskeiding nie. Hoe onderskei dit? It doesn't. The scanner is a simple thing, and I just ask it, read the next int in this file, read the next int, read the next int, read the next int, read the next int. It ignores all the white space and all the new lines.
So what if the next one isn't? What if next isn't the int?
Brilliant question. Let's see if we can find out. Well, let's first see if this works. I said it worked, but how do we know? I lie all the time. I lie to my own mother. Okay. It worked, fine. Next experiment, what if we put an AA in there, which is not an int?
Just skip it and go to the next int.
Oh, should we fix this?
Yeah.
Well, let's. There we're using next int, and here.
Can we use the right ints?
Let's use an if statement. If scanner dot has a next int, then read the size. Else, send back null to indicate that there's an invalid array. And the same here. Well, if it's the same, I can just copy it, can't I? Much nicer code, more robust, but way uglier to read. But that's okay. It's only. Oh, okay. It's okay. It's only a couple of lines. Somebody who's competent in Java will be able to understand this. So it's not as if I'm writing pages and pages and pages of ugly code. I'm just writing enough. Are you guys knocking your desks? Is this my mic, or is there somebody outside knocking with a hammer trying to get in? No, there won't be. Okay, fine. Most importantly, I don't want it to be the mic. Yes? Yes, it could be my mind. You're very right. Okay. Oh, time's almost up.
Sorry, can you just try to look at array user just for a second? I want to understand.
Afrikaans summary. Yes. So wat het ons gedoen? Ons het 'n biblioteek geskryf wat net soos die biblioteek in die boek skikkings inlees. En dis nie belangrik dat ons baie min geskryf het nie. Wat baie belangrik is dat ons het verstaan wat ons doen en ons het nuwe dinge geleer. Ons het uitgevind waarom ons byvoorbeeld 'n fout kry, hoe ons die fout moet hanteer, hoe ons 'n array moet lees. En my waarheid te sê, Woensdag gaan ons nog hierna kyk. We'll look at this again on Wednesday very quickly when I'll show you the other way of reading arrays from in a library like this without having to specify the size. Okay, right. So most important, let's just see if the recording worked.